From Venture X Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Is my microphone live now? Thank you. All right. So, had a few technical difficulties with the Zoom again today, so we apologize for that. Starting our show a little bit late. We have Dr. Rebecca Good, who is going to come on with us. Unfortunately, I think we only have audio for our Zoom. Is that correct, Brett and Chambrielle? Okay. So we should be able to have a picture pop up here of Dr. Good. And good morning, Dr. Good. Can you still hear us?
Yes, I can hear you
Yay!
fine.
Yay! She can hear us. All right. You go ahead.
I know I'm supposed to come on here and talk about what's happening, but I have no words. I have no words for what is happening in Texas over this mask mandate.
So tell us, did I read correctly? And you and I was just on your show, and thank you for allowing me to be a guest on Sunday. And one of the things you and I talked about, kind of tongue in cheek, but obviously seriously about it, and that was, we hope the politics and the anger and the venom from either wearing a mask or not wearing a mask doesn't play out in front of the school kids and with the teachers, leave them out of it, kind of a thing. So
and
how's that working out for us, Dr. Good?
Well, I sent you an article from Eanes ISD.
Ooh.
Parent rips off teacher's mask in school alterations. And other in the same district had parents yelling at teachers because they were wearing a mask. And so really, people, we've got to get ourselves under control. What our current political situation is leading us to is anger. And so instead of paying attention to the science, we're just having to pay attention to the politicians who aren't paying attention to the science.
Right.
And let me give you a little bit of evidence. I'm in contact with our favorite school, Legacy, and they have COVID cases just like almost all districts right now, right? They're back in school a week or two, and they're already having to contend with teachers and kids with COVID and what to do. If they don't have COVID, then exposure, right? And so a lot of what we're seeing, anecdotal data, is that teachers who are not wearing masks are getting COVID, and teachers who chose not to get vaccinated and not wearing masks are getting COVID, versus teachers who are vaccinated and wearing their masks, they're not getting COVID. And so the science is telling us that. We're seeing it play out, and yet we still have a no mask mandate. So we're just, there's just no word for all that's going on right now. But it just needs to, we as the adults in the room need to get better at especially controlling that anger with our school folks. Because they are our superheroes in all this. They are the front line, right?
Right.
And so,
and we talked about that on Sunday on your show as well, that anybody who thinks a teacher, that folks who are educators who are out there amongst our students and our school kids, which again are our most valuable asset, if they aren't there, that's them being there. They're a first line responder. They're a first responder. They're that first line of defense. And anybody who doesn't think so, come talk to a teacher or a former teacher.
Oh my gosh. And because the spatial distancing, for the most part, went away, it's at 3 feet, you now have 20 some odd kids, sometimes more, in a classroom. And, it's like, you remember, I think it was Prel shampoo commercial where you tell two people and they tell two people.
Oh, that was Fabergé. You tell two people and then they'll tell two people. I remember that commercial. I love Fabergé, that shampoo from the 70s.
And that's how this virus spreads, right? And so you have kids who are coming from home environments with other people who are in contact with other people. And so how ironic, by the way, I hate to say karma, our governor has COVID now. So,
right. Well, and nobody wishes that on him. He had the vaccine too. You know,
That's right.
I mean, you know, obviously we're asking people today, we're going to be asking people to pray for the governor because, you know, he's done what he can do to protect himself. And, yeah, and they're saying, and Dr. Clothier, I was actually texting with him yesterday, he said that the fact that he doesn't have symptoms yet maybe is a result of him having had the COVID shot. So,
Well, but maybe, and my thing is, had he been wearing a mask, maybe people in his immediate area, have been safer, right? So it's all. It's not only about our personal rights, but our personal responsibility to help keep people safe. And so, if we look at it that way, maybe it takes away the urge to do, what I want and say what's best for the community, especially with our kids, because we have had so many kids going to the hospital now with this new variant, and darn it, I feel like the kids have been forgotten in all of this.
well, and the kids are the ones that we've got to make sure that even the adults arguing about whatever they're arguing about, we can't let that be something that impacts the kids. The kids desperately need to be back in class. They desperately need to learn. We've got, like you said, this number discrepancy that's been unreal with the kids having not been on campus. And so we've got to get kids back to the business of learning and kids back to the business of, crazy concept, being kids, and as long as we bring our adult troubles and dump them right there in the middle. I've heard board meetings, Dr. Good. Have you heard about this? All
Yes.
across Texas
Sure.
and the country are literally, you've got parents up in arms screaming at each other. I mean, come on.
Right. There's very definitely two sides to this, and both sides want to be right. And we just got to come down on what science is saying is best for us together, everybody. And, I'll keep it to the kids in this case and to teachers. Keeping them as safe as possible is in our best interest. So if that means wearing a mask, I'm going to tell you, most kids aren't bothered by wearing a mask anymore. They're just not.
Right.
They're used to it.
Right.
So what they're not used to seeing are parents screaming at teachers, putting their hands on teachers' faces to rip off masks. They don't need to see that.
No,
And
they
so
don't. They don't. I mean, they just don't deserve that. JP, what are your thoughts? I mean, did you hear about that?
I did, but I don't necessarily agree with all of that.
With what?
One, that kids are comfortable with masks now.
Oh, no. I'm not. I'm saying kids should not be seeing parents
but I
ripping
mean,
masks.
I've
Any
been
kind of
listening for a
violence,
while, though,
yeah.
so.
Any kind of violence or anger. I'm just asking about
Right.
this anger that these kids are having dumped in their laps because the adults are mad. We can't work it out amongst ourselves. We can't, disagree agreeably. It shouldn't be taken out on the kids.
Well, but it's everywhere. I mean, it's on television. It's on social media.
It's horrible.
This is what adults
It doesn't make it right.
broke
though.
into. And so as a result of that, that's what you have growing.
Right.
Is because that's what you have seen. And kids are going to mirror what their adults teach them. I mean, that's why I've always said adults are horrible. Kids are wonderful.
The kids aren't the problem.
Yeah, I mean, the kids don't come out screaming out of the uterus going, woohoo, I'm going to be a drug dealer. Woohoo, I'm going to rob a bank. They don't do that. They follow the path that these adults lead them down, even in vitro. I mean, a child is learning. It's proven, the science is there, since that's the new term of 2021, the science is there that children learn in vitro even. And so if your husband and wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, screaming and yelling, fighting, cussing, that's what the child comes out.
Your kid's going to come out cussing?
Well, that could be their first
I
word.
was going to say, their first word might not be
That
mom
could be
or
their
dad.
first word. I mean, if you watch the Fockers, you remember first word wasn't good. You don't remember that?
I don't remember that. Isn't that the
Go back and watch.
with Robert De Niro.
Congressman Taylor remembers that. I mean, his first
That
word, they're
movie
like,
is
no,
hilarious, though.
don't say that. It's like, too late. It's out of the bag. But my point is that anger is something that has been created since the Obama administration with this continual separation of the American society and this divide that started with, I felt like, and I could just be one of those guys that have that pie in the sky kind of dream, we were coming out of racism. We were moving towards an American society. And then President Obama takes over and there becomes this racial divide again. And then the country starts taking up the woke left versus the the right.
There was a.
I mean, it's
that was back when Michelle Obama, their pastor said blank blank the white people, and to me, and again, racism from anybody on any side against any group of people is unacceptable. You're not. I mean, we agree with that wholeheartedly. It's just, you know, it's unfortunate that it has become a part of. Well, and you and I have talked about this, JP. You know, growing up. I mean, you know, I grew up in, that was right after, where racism was something your parents talked to you about. They let my parents, thankfully, led by good example. But then I didn't think I was going to have to talk to my kids about it. And then all of a sudden my kids get a little bit older. And it was during the Obama administration. And it was, hey, guess what, kids? Let's have a conversation. They were like, well, Mom, I've got friends that are this, that, the other. What? So why do you have to? And I'm like, just because, unfortunately, society's got us in a very different backwards time.
See, and here I go with this as well. I think it's very much a small group, but I think the small group is being heard, whereas major America doesn't buy off on either extreme. And they want what's right, and they're pretty just people.
Joe taxpayer just working.
I believe in the American people. I think that they're good people. I think you have a very small group of people in this country that have an agenda, and certain media outlets are going to give them a lot of face time and make them look like they're middle America when they're not.
Right.
I mean, Antifa is not middle America, but yet they still run Oregon. I
was going to say,
or Portland, pardon me, not
and
the
how
whole
do they
state.
still get, and I've barely been watching the news. I watch what I need to see to get by. And Antifa led like a headline last night on some news show, and I'm like, what?
Well, and if you talk to CNN, 95% of the American people believe that what Joe Biden has done in Afghanistan
is all good.
Is great.
Yeah,
it did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Give me a break.
Yeah, and she never backed off of that statement. And she was standing in front of the White House when she made the statement on CNN, this reporter, and it's like, where is she from?
Yeah.
Like, which moon did she get launched off of?
And Dr. Good's like, weren't we talking about education? Sorry, Dr. Good.
Well,
we're on a rant this morning.
Not a problem.
Well,
I will leave you with the thought of let's just be kind to each other, please.
Yes.
And let's not take it out on our teachers. When our kids see parents devaluing our teachers, and they don't value our teachers, and that plays out poorly in the classroom. So please, please, please make sure that you show value to your teachers. Check my checklist, right?
Yes.
I did the checklist, and I did how to show kindness to your teachers all year. I may post that back, a link to that on your comments. So that
please do. Please do.
How to be nice to your teacher all year.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Be Good, muchas gracias. There's a little Spanish for you this morning. And
¿Quieres hablar más?
Yeah, there you go.
¿Quieres hablar más? Hablamos más.
Sí, gracias.
Gracias. Adiós.
Adios.
Thanks, Dr. Good. Have a blessed week. I don't know how to. I don't.
She
speak
said that
Spanish.
she'll talk to you later.
Gracias.
And gracias.
Oh, there you go. Please send me that so I can say that to you next Wednesday.
I will do that. Absolutely. All right. Well, super excited.
Oh.
We generally have some really Garth Brookish, I'm on the low end of the totem pole kind of partiers in our studio, but not today. We are high cotton today. Let me tell you, I'm excited. We've got Congressman Van Taylor joining us in studio today.
Woohoo! Back
good morning,
alive.
Good morning and good
morning.
morning.
There you go. Yeah.
I love it.
Now it's a
I love
fantastic
it.
kind of day.
Fantastic. And you think we're kidding. JP and I are going to have 4x4s that we put out that say
On our own.
vote #Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Don't
Nice.
worry.
Nice.
We'll do all of the campaign finance stuff on our end.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it, but just know,
I am going to get a
that's
campaign
JP
t-shirt
and
that says
Kathy.
that, by the way. Vote for my
Outstanding.
Congressman, Fantastic
All
Van
right.
Taylor. I'm
Good stuff.
telling you what.
Thanks, guys.
So, wow, have you gotten any sleep, Marine?
Wow. Well, it's been rough. I mean, the President of the United States lost an entire country to terrorists over the weekend.
Over the weekend.
Yeah, he was on vacation.
Yeah. While he was vacationing, the terrorists
he and
ran
his
him
team
up.
were on vacation, and they lost the whole country to terrorists.
Is this
it's
this
not like
unreal?
no one told him. Like not like said, hey, like this is a. I mean, press conference a couple weeks ago. Hey, are you going to lose it? We're going to have helicopters lifting off the. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean that was we talked about this on the show I guess Monday. Literally, that was like a month ago that he said, "Oh no, what embassy what?"
3 weeks ago.
And then you're like, you're like, how?
Well, let me rewind for just a moment.
Gosh, how can you be so ignorant?
First of all, it's an explosive conversation right now across the country.
What a disaster.
It shows in the polls, not that you can trust polls, but it shows across the board. Independents give him an F. Republicans give him an F. In one part of what he's done, Democrats have given him a B+, and now they're giving him an F. And not taking responsibility and accountability for what he's doing. But let's roll this back. You're a Marine.
Sure.
You have been in an arena, I call it an arena, but it's not called that. It is a campaign. It is a. Sure. You have been in the desert, not necessarily. You weren't in Afghanistan, correct? It was Iraq.
Sure, Iraq. Yeah.
You saw what the Iraqi people were going through and how they reacted to having Americans there. The majority of them.
Right.
How does it feel as a Marine to see your commander-in-chief pull out like he has in Afghanistan, knowing these people that are left behind, knowing you have witnessed it in Iraq? How does that make you feel, Congressman Taylor?
Well, it's incredibly upsetting. We 20 years ago, we went into Afghanistan because there was a terrorist organization that was operating under the aegis of the support of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was operating because the Taliban was letting them operate there. We got rid of the Taliban so that we could stop Al-Qaeda, who conducted the attacks against the United States on September 11, 2001. It's really shocking. It's stunning that the president, unilaterally. I mean, this is his decision. He made this call. A bunch of people said, "Hey," including me. "Hey, whoa, hold on. Let's really think this through. Right. Let's make sure that we're going to get this right." And he stumbled ahead. And this is the greatest foreign policy fiasco probably of all time. I mean to lose an entire country to terrorists, the same terrorists that attacked us 20 years ago, and say, "Yeah, I own it," is just it's just incredible.
Well, I own it, but
I own it, but it's somebody else's fault. And
right.
This is a tremendous foreign policy fiasco, and he owns it a whole lock, stock, and barrel. There's no way. There's no way to pawn it off on anybody. I mean, this is the president's failure, period, end.
Period, end of sentence. I mean, and I know obviously there's more to discuss because we've got, humans, we've got Americans, we've got people who are allies, who are supporters, who are over there. But at the end of the day, it's interesting. I was having a text conversation with JP about the show today, about you coming on, and then literally like minutes later was having the same texting conversation with my dad, and both JP and my dad said, This is the lowest point. I think my dad said this is our lowest point in America, in our country, in our entire history. And JP, I think you said something, and you can quote yourself, but it said something along the lines of, "This is the worst disaster that we've ever been a part of."
Well, it's the worst foreign policy disaster.
Yes.
I mean, even Bill Clinton, when he went through the IHOP jokes, about the extent of his international experience was he'd have pancakes at IHOP.
Yeah.
Even he didn't have these kinds of mistakes. I mean, people make mistakes, I get it. But this is colossal in the mistake world. Here's my question. How has the House reacted to this?
Well, let me just give one caveat before all Joe Biden had to do was nothing. Right. I mean,
right.
I mean, had he done
nothing.
Had he done nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, there was a surge, 10 years ago. Actually, President Obama was part of that. They stabilized the country of Afghanistan. American presence went down in the 15,000, 20,000 range, and went up and down. President Trump drew that down further into the 3,500 number. And it was basically stabilized. I mean, the casualty rates were, any casualty is tragic, but they were relatively low. And we had, the Taliban wasn't in control of the country. Right. All you had to do was nothing. Right? If you've done, but it's unfortunately, this is true with the U.S. Mexican border. All you had to do was nothing. You had a stable border. And then President Biden made a series of choices that he's completely destabilized the border. It's a disaster.
And now look at the human disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster down there. I mean, and inflation. I mean, that's coming. It's
it's
all he had
already there and
to
getting
do.
worse.
All he had to do was nothing. But then he surges ahead. And,
Aren't we like at a 15-year high for inflation
Brett, can we
already?
raise his volume, please?
Aren't we already at a 15-year high for inflation right now? And things just and again, then I feel bad comparing how much more we're paying at the grocery store and at the gas pump compared to what these women who had been empowered over in Afghanistan and missionaries. My goodness, I've got friends who are missionaries over in that neck of the woods who are saying, please pray, and they're writing people's names and it's horrific.
No,
it's horrific.
It's absolutely horrific, and
these people are waiting for their execution today.
Sure, no, it's horrific for the people of Afghanistan, right? It is horrific for the region. You've destabilized the entire region, and it's horrific for the world because the ISIS terrorist group, and you think that Biden would have learned from Iraq, right? I mean, there was a precipitous withdrawal by the Obama administration in Iraq. It created a vacuum.
Right.
So who filled the vacuum? Well, ISIS filled the vacuum, right? And then they conduct terrorist attacks around the world. And then the United States has to go back in, help Iraq, take back this battle space. We're still in parts of Syria. That was something that Trump had. It was a mess that Trump ended cleaning up.
Yes.
Basically, whittling ISIS down to a nub. What I'm worried about is ISIS coming into Afghanistan now, or Al Qaeda going into Afghanistan, or a new terrorist organization going to Afghanistan, and then they conduct terrorist attacks against the world and the United States. But I'm worried about the homeland. We were not safe with the Taliban running Afghanistan 20 years ago. Clearly, we were attacked. We were attacked, right? And that's why we went in the first place. And the exact same group, the Taliban, the same group of people, is now in control of the entire country. I mean,
exactly,
including U.S. weaponry.
Yeah, no,
that was left behind.
Yep. Yes, I mean,
automobiles,
forts,
military automobiles,
airplanes,
airplanes,
helicopters.
That's what I was saying.
Oh my gosh!
No, there are pictures and video of the Taliban boarding our helicopters.
Yeah.
How did we not blow all that up before we left?
Well, again, what we saw is just President Biden did not have a plan, when this announcement was made, it actually took members of Congress by surprise. It was not something that we were expecting. It was not something that you were watching a big hue and cry in the Congress saying, "Hey, we got to leave now." President, he made this decision on his own. This was a unilateral decision by President Biden, and it was very clear immediately that there was no plan. Something that I was concerned about, other members of Congress, was, hey, what are we going to do about those Afghanis who stood by us, who were our interpreters, who were willing to risk their lives,
who gave us intelligence, so we could.
We need to help.
We could do what we needed
we've got to
do.
protect those people. We've got to help get those people out. And it was very clear immediately there was no plan. They had no planning. They had conducted no planning. And what's so upsetting? So upsetting is that the president said we plan for every contingency. It's like, no, you didn't. You obviously didn't.
Yeah, you didn't.
You had no clue what you were doing. You've completely bungled this, and now we're less safe. I mean, we here in Collin County, we are less safe as a result of the president's incompetence. And again, what will be studied for generations as the greatest foreign policy disaster. I mean, there's a new Bay of Pigs. I mean,
yes. I mean, everything else.
Well,
is
and even
there's a new Saigon, right? And that and it's because the president unilaterally. I mean, it was his decision. He decided to do this. He owns this.
Yeah.
And
so we've got a couple questions, of course, that we're going to come up on this topic.
Yeah.
One of the questions is there a real fear or understanding in Congress that Biden may be cognitively not able to do this job?
It comes up more and more. Look, he keeps screwing up, right? And the consequences are serious and they're real. And they matter to the people who are affected immediately, whether you're on the border or whether you're in Afghanistan, or whether you're suffering from inflation. But this president is, it's unbelievable to me that he won't fess up and say, "Look, I was wrong." And I mean, admitting you made a mistake, I think, is the first step to getting something right.
How does this impact Well, or does it? Does it impact the way that Biden will look at the border now, knowing that the Taliban has taken over it? Now they can bleed in from our southern border,
Right.
Without,
Sure.
I mean, without question. I mean, there's
No,
I mean, we're watching them. I was in Mission, Texas.
Yeah, you were on
And
the border.
on their news are all of these immigrants just coming across, walking across
Sure.
through the gate.
It's all on video.
Well,
it's not
yeah,
like
and-
anybody's hiding anything.
Yeah, I mean, and just to kind of shift over to that, what we're seeing on the border is that it is fewer and fewer from the Northern Triangle countries and more from around the world because the word has gotten out. If you're in Africa, if you're in Asia, if you're in South America, and you want to come to the United States, why wait in line? Just cross the southern border, surrender yourself to Border Patrol. They'll give you, ask for asylum. They'll give you a work permit and a bus ticket. They'll send you anywhere you want to go. They'll let you stay in the country. Literally, and the court dates are literally undetermined. We'll call you. We don't know when we need you to come to court. And so so our system is so overwhelmed that now you have, and there've been and President Biden there've been over 1 million encounters on the southern border since he was president.
Right.
An absolute fiasco.
And it hasn't even been, I mean, we're not even
And all he had to, and again,
year into his presidency.
that's another thing.
Yeah, just
all
do nothing.
all he had to do was nothing.
Do nothing.
Right,
If he'd
right.
made no change, if he'd done nothing different,
Right.
then not a single thing different, America would have a secure border. I mean, he made a conscious choice. And I think what's frustrating about the border is that what works, what you need to do because President Trump did it, and he's choosing not to do what we need to do to secure the border. But going back to Afghanistan, clearly a tremendous policy fiasco that will reverberate for generations. Again, we just let an entire country go to the same terrorists that attacked us 20 years ago.
And are going to still operate under Sharia law. Here's what I love. How about this? How about the oxymoron, right? We're going to run the country under Sharia law, but we're going to give women free speech, and we're going to treat them right.
Yeah.
How do you do that under Sharia law? It's contradictive. It doesn't exist under Sharia law.
Yeah. Well, we are at threat because of this president and his incompetence.
That's it.
And it's really dire.
We are, our allies are, anybody who has supported us, and again, and we are, and we talked about this the other day on the show, like, at the end of the day, okay, I obviously, gosh, I don't even know where to start on the policy we don't agree with this administration. But at the end of the day, at least keep me safe when I'm taking my kids to the park, when I'm taking my kids to school, when I'm going to see a movie with my family or going to a restaurant or walking my dog or coming up here to Venture X to do a show with Congressman Van Taylor. My goodness, at least don't let me live in fear that I'm going to have a bomb dropped on me or a plane crash into the building I'm in. And now we're back to where we were. I mean, we're about, like you said, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary, or not anniversary, the 20th, commemoration of 9/11, and we're talking about never forget. And my goodness, we're further away from being safe than we ever were.
Sure. No, and I think what another thing that's upsetting is just how many warning lights were going off before we got to going on vacation and losing a country over the weekend, right? I mean, there were a lot of warning lights going off. Hey, we got problems here, and there were exit ramps. I mean, 3 weeks ago, hey, we need to slow down. We need to rethink this. We need to make sure we don't. I mean,
something could have been.
We need
done,
to make sure we don't
adjustment.
lose this country
right.
to the Taliban.
Right.
But instead, no. But again, it just goes back to the lack of planning, lack of foresight, ignoring the professionals, not listening. And we'll have a lot. I mean, there'll be a lot of time to hash out how this mistake was made and how serious it was. At the end of the day, the president owns it. I mean, he and we're less safe for it.
Well, you got to give him this. He did cut his vacation short by a day.
Oh, good night.
Wow.
So he could
Thanks,
talk
JP.
with-
That's really great. I feel so much better now.
Hey, okay, we're sitting here. You're a current elected official.
Well, he had to call the
JP.
Prime Minister of the UK.
Yeah, there you go.
come on.
Come on. Yeah, we got our priorities. Okay, you're an elected official. You've held many offices. JP, you're a retired judge. I'm a former elected official, and it's one of those things where you look at even on vacation, even when I was like, hey, I'm going to be hunkered down in a parent-teacher conference for the next 2 hours. If it's an emergency, shoot me a 911 text. I'll have my phone on vibrate. I'm sorry, when you're on vacation, which I know is not very often, your wife's like, trust me, it's not very often, but aren't you reachable? I mean, I know I've gotten in touch with you while you're on vacation. I've reached out to your staff, and they've been like, hey, let me ask him real quick. You know, he's on a family vacation for a day or two, but let me ask. And I don't get denied your service as a taxpayer or as a constituent. So I don't get it. How come the president gets to deny all of these people, and it's anywhere up to, anywhere from like 11,000 to 40,000 people who need our protection over there? And what was he even doing? Was he even I don't know. Was he golfing? What was he doing?
He was at Camp David.
But doing what?
Barbecuing. I don't get his itinerary. I don't know.
Yeah, they stopped sending you that?
They did. Congressman Taylor,
so sad.
Here's what the big question is this morning. Sure. Right? We have 15,000 Americans that are still in Afghanistan.
Right.
Okay. Not many of them not in Kabul to be able to get to the airport. Right. And so the question now, do we get them out?
Yeah. Well, look, as a Marine, I lived the creed, leave no man behind. And as bad as this is, we shouldn't make it worse by abandoning Americans and leaving them in harm's way. That's the wrong thing to do. Actually, as you know, I'm the Republican leader of a group called For Country, 25 veterans, half Democrat, half Republican. And we've already started having preliminary conversations about the need to make sure we get everybody out. And that's something we've been focused on, and something that we were, again, surprised at the lack of planning. This is the real, the lack of planning, right? The announcement was made, but the plan hadn't been made. And usually,
how do you do that?
Usually you have the plan and then you make the announcement. You don't
leadership 101.
You don't say, "Hey,
basic,
we're invading Normandy. Now let's cut." And as the ships are underway, you go, "Okay, we should have a plan." Maybe we should think about who's going to go where. But that's not what happened here. And so, but I certainly believe we need to make sure that every American comes home, and we need to get every American out. And I think we need to stay until we get everybody out. We're in a much worse place than we were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you had the Northern Alliance. There was a counter faction to the Taliban. We were able to take that Northern Alliance faction and work against the Taliban and eject them from power. That's gone. We have lost that edge, and that's why this is so upsetting. This is why this is so incredibly upsetting.
Yeah.
So this morning, again, we're starting to see some resistance, but it's not an armed resistance. There was a huge protest in Jalalabad.
Okay.
I think I pronounced that correctly. And the people were protesting. They took down the Taliban flag, put the Afghan flag back up, and the Taliban started shooting into the crowd. Wow. And then you see this massive, just human disbursement.
God bless all these
people. As the Taliban are shooting gunfire into the crowd of these people that are protesting, because we gave them a taste of what freedom is like. And they were out expressing an assembly to show their distaste, and this is how it's been reacted to. And to believe that we can trust the Taliban to want to be this international partner now, they just showed you. Just like Tiananmen Square with China. Give me a break here. They just didn't roll any tanks in, because I don't think they've found the U.S. tanks over in Afghanistan yet. And so how do we support now? Has this become an Iran-Contra thing again? Like with an Ollie North, do we go in and we support people who, because we don't have the Northern Alliance, to undermine the Taliban?
Again, the reason this is such a fiasco, JP, is because there's not a quick answer. If there was a quick answer,
it already happened.
There was. Don't do anything. Don't make us be a sitting duck.
The opportunity to not screw this up was last month.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
The warning lights were going off, and the pilot said it doesn't matter, and he just crashed the plane. And when the plane crashes, it's not going to fly again. A
lot of conservative scholars are calling for impeachment based on what President Biden is doing, asking Republicans to take that and run with it. Do you see anything like that coming out of any of this?
Impeachment's very serious. I mean, I've unfortunately been through 2 impeachment trials. And the standard is high crimes and misdemeanors. And I mean, gross incompetence is not a high crime. I can't really square that circle. But what I will say is the president has absolutely failed the American people, and we are less safe today. There is not an easy answer. I mean, if there was, it wouldn't be such a disaster. The easy answers are in the past, and the president is fully responsible for this failure.
Yeah, it's pretty sad when you're watching German planes, German planes and Afghan planes taking off, and the planes are empty. There are no passengers in them since the Taliban has taken the airport back over.
Doesn't that say everything? I think the most people that were in one plane the other day, and they were all members of the Taliban, were like 6 or 7 people, and they were Taliban. I'm like, so, again, it's gone so disastrously wrong. And you get back to laying this at the feet of the president, the current president. And several people had said, I wanted to think that the houses of Congress had power, and I didn't want to think when I cast my vote. And then this is going to lead to a phone call I just got yesterday during his press conference. I didn't want to think that a president could make such a colossal mistake that would have such staggering negative human impact. And a member of the crew who wasn't a fan of President Trump's voted for Biden. And I didn't realize that until yesterday. And this friend of ours called and said, I don't know who else to call. I know you were big into, victory 2020 for the Republican side of things. I just want to say right now, if I could go back and take my vote back and not vote for Biden and vote for President Trump, I did not like his personality. I didn't like his tweets. That's the reason I didn't vote for him. I had no idea that one president could cause such a disaster in less than a year. And he said, I just wanted to apologize to somebody for not voting for President Trump and for throwing my vote away to somebody who is literally having people beheaded in the streets. It's pretty sad and pretty powerful.
Wow. Well,
I'll tell you after who it is. You probably know who it is.
Definitely is some buyer's remorse out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Boy, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean,
no kidding.
Well, and and look, the real ramifications of this fiasco are not going to be known for a long time, right? I mean, does ISIS come to Afghanistan? Does Al-Qaeda rise in Afghanistan? Does a new terrorist organization start in Afghanistan?
Does Pakistan fall?
Does the Taliban create their own terrorist organization? Are there incursions into Afghanistan? Does the region
probably have
destabilize?
a plan, Congressman. They probably have a plan for all that.
Yeah, I mean, does it destabilize? And then but the world, the region is, the people of Afghanistan are less safe today. The region is less safe today. The world is less safe today. America is less safe today. The president, this is a failure.
Yeah, last night. I listened to an interview with the ambassador from Pakistan. Of course, a third of that country is run. They guesstimate. Our intelligence tells us a third of that country is run by terrorism or terrorists, which is of course where Osama bin Laden was hiding, was in Pakistan. And there is a concern now that will we be able to keep and maintain Pakistan and not lose it to becoming a terrorist state, with the question of they have nuclear capability, for goodness sakes.
Sure.
And so
no, and I mean, I think the argument that we were in a forever war, I think was a false argument. I mean, there is no doubt that the U.S. having bases in Germany since the Second World War, having bases in Japan. In Okinawa, in Iwakuni, Japan, having bases in Korea, that has enhanced America's ability to project power abroad. If we don't project power abroad, somebody will fill the vacuum.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
And that is probably the most important, kind of, and you would think Biden would have learned his lesson in Iraq. Hey, we pull out, it'll be fine, and then ISIS shows up, right? So they somebody filled the vacuum. But here, there was no question who would fill the vacuum. You knew that if we pull back a terrorist group, the Al Qaeda will. I'm sorry, the Taliban will take over.
Yeah.
We knew,
We knew
that.
that.
Yeah, I mean that warning light was there's no question, and I think that's probably the single reason it makes it so upsetting is that you knew exactly what was going to happen. You knew about the disaster that was looming and portended, and the ability to predict the future is cloudy for all of us, but it doesn't look good.
Well, and one of the terms this morning I heard being thrown around in the media was we now have an axis, and it's called the axis of terrorism. And the axis powers are Iran, China, Russia, and guess whose embassies aren't shut down?
Sure.
In Afghanistan, China, and Russia.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when it was talked about this morning, the comment was made, well, because the Taliban knows that if they were to mess with China or Russia, that they would come in and eliminate them.
Right.
They wouldn't hesitate for a moment to take them out.
They knew we would roll over.
And so,
they knew we had a president who was a buffoon, a president who should know, who is a career politician. So if I'm going to be in elected office, my whole entire career, I'm a senator, then I'm vice president, for crying out loud, for 8 years. You would think he would have sat in on a few foreign policy briefings, and then he goes to become president. At some point, if anybody's had the training or should have the knowledge, obviously he doesn't, shouldn't it be the current president? But he doesn't, and somebody said, when has America ever backed away from a fight? Well, Gail from the Cruise said that this morning,
Well, that's what he ran on. He ran as a foreign policy expert. He ran as someone who had 30 years of experience in the Senate Foreign Policy Committee, someone who really understood foreign policy. And I mean, he now owns the largest foreign policy failure of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just, this will be studied for generations to come
You're right.
of like, wow, that
You're
was
right.
a huge screw up. And again, he owns it. I mean, it was his decision, and all he had to do was nothing.
So going forward, can the House do anything? Can the House and the Senate come together and do anything to
Pelosi,
impact this?
Understand that Pelosi and Schumer, I think, they didn't do anything. I mean, they could have stood up and said, "Hey, this is a mistake. We want you to slow down. You need to have a plan." They could have put him in check. They could have passed legislation. They could, but they didn't do anything. They just rolled over, said, "Okay, whatever you want." But again, that speaks to how much the president owns this. I mean, that he used his office and his position as the president of the United States to say, "This is what I want to do," and Schumer and Pelosi acquiesced to that,
Yeah,
and they didn't choose to oppose. Yeah, well, Congress, when they're in the same party, they rarely oppose. If there was ever a time to oppose, it would have been this. It would have been, "Hey, no, we want you to go slow. We want you to have a plan. We're not satisfied with the plans that you have. You're not doing this right." And the other thing is that as the conditions on the ground started to deteriorate, I mean, so the announcement was made in April and things started falling apart in June, there was a chance to retrench and say, "Okay, hey, we need to rethink this and go back in or restart." And the other loss here, is the Bagram Air Force Base. We had invested a tremendous amount of money. It was a great asset. Allowed us to project power all through the region, and that's gone. We've just completely that's just gone, and that's a huge strategic loss to the United States. But
so to change the page dramatically,
Sure,
because we're running out of time.
Okay.
Anything exciting happening out of the congressional
Give
office
us some
here
good
in the
news,
district?
please, Congressman Taylor.
Any applications for things?
Sure. Well, we let's see. So we've gotten a great group of kids applying for the Congressional Youth Advisory Council.
Excellent.
We'll be announcing that shortly. Got a tremendous number of applications for the Congressional Veterans Recognition, which is a great event. And so the board's going to have a really hard time with so many super applications of great veterans.
What a great problem to have.
It's a great problem. We've
Yeah.
got great people here. And then we are the app challenge is still going. We've already had 16 submissions, and so if you're a coder and you like to write apps, then this is for you. And so
all those 17-year-olds tuned in this morning.
So yeah, if you're cutting class, watching JP, Kathy, and the crew, so yeah, and then I'll just I'll just make a comment. Collin County, our economy, our unemployment numbers are strong. I will say I am concerned about the rise in COVID. I mean, I was at Baylor Scott and White yesterday. The curve is very concerning. It is 99% of the people going to the hospital are people that were not vaccinated. It's easy to get vaccinated. I think it's safe. My family's been vaccinated. I mean,
I've been vaccinated.
If you want to, greatly reduce the probability you're going to go to the hospital, you can get vaccinated.
Well, and that's why they're even saying, and I was going back and forth with our medical expert, Dr. Clothier, who's on our show, and he said that most likely the reason that, and we are asking for prayers for Governor Abbott, who has tested positive for COVID, who gets tested every day. This is the first time it's been positive. Who was vaccinated? I think he even did it on TV, if I'm remembering correctly.
He did, and he has no symptoms.
And he has no symptoms
this morning.
And they're saying that possibly it's because he's had the shot that he doesn't have the symptoms, or he won't.
Right.
Quite possibly can reduce his risks of being sick. So yeah.
There was a question that came up about that with the way our borders are. Are we concerned about the Lambda variant coming in from Peru?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, the lack of a secure border unquestionably, is driving your COVID numbers. You can't let tens of thousands of COVID positive people in the country every single month and say, hey, nothing's going to happen.
Well, and then they don't have any rules or constraints or check-in points or anything like the rest of us do. So,
but again, I mean, the irony of this administration, there's some discussion about making people be vaccinated before they can, fly into this country. But you're allowing, but if you come in illegally, well, hey, no problem. So it boggles the mind.
So anything for good of the order. I know we're out of time, and the music's going to start playing.
I'll just share that we are as the economy restarts, we're feeling the restart, and that we're probably 2 years away from kind of getting back to the new normal. And I'll just give you one example. If you're a car dealer, you normally have 75 days of inventory on the lot. So you got a lot of choices. They're currently having 7 to 10 days of inventory, and the manufacturers are telling them, hey, we'll get you back to 75 days of inventory at Christmas of next year. Yeah. So you're 18 months away from your auto dealership having the normal inventory levels. And I think in the housing market, you're probably 2 years away from housing being at a normal inventory level. I think that you have a lot of pent-up business travel that hasn't happened, that wants to happen this fall, which may not happen until next spring because of the Delta variant. So I think the startup experience is going to be, it's been jerky for all of us. I think it's going to continue. It's not just taking your mask off and it's over, right? I think it's a longer road. It's a
process.
It is a process. I think the sooner you get that, kind of sort of think through that, the better off we'll all be. So.
All right. Well, Congressman Taylor, first of all, thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
I know you have a busy schedule, and it would have been easier to come on by video, I'm sure.
No, it's always fun to be with you guys.
So glad to have you in this morning. And
get the good morning in person.
In person.
And I love that.
Well, and
that's my favorite thing. Nobody else does that. I love that.
All the years we've been together, you're the only one who's ever gotten that.
I love that.
We love
figured it out. Yeah.
Well, and we do appreciate you coming in, especially to talk about such an important topic. I mean, it's just... obviously, everybody over in Afghanistan who's trapped there needs our prayers. So, if we're asking the crew again, please come together and pray for these people in need, because you read it and you're like, this has just got to be a really bad movie or a really bad dream, and I'm going to wake up, and we're not. This is what we're stuck with. So, God bless you for trying to push back the frontiers of darkness in D.C.
Yeah.
You always seem like your load's been lightened when you're back in the district.
It's always fun to be
You've
home.
Always got you're
it's
kind of jovial.
Better. It's always better.
Got a smile on your face.
Well, his family's here.
That's true. Yes, that's true.
There's that.
His family is here.
I get to see my mother.
Yeah, you see your mom. Yeah.
Then there's that.
And she's like, and thanks for the shout out, honey. I was waiting for that.
Absolutely. Well, be safe in your travels today and in the future, and we look forward to talking with you next week. There were some questions on the feed.
Yeah.
I know you had a couple staff folks that were on the feed watching this morning, so I'm hoping they'll get them as about teachers and Social Security and WEP.
Well, let me just whatever issues you have, just reach out to my office. You can Google Van Taylor Congressman, and you'll get my office, and just pop us an email, and we'll do everything we can to help. We're having a lot of issues with the IRS, SBA, Social Security, those, and again, in the restart stuff, they kind of shut down for a couple months, and so they're behind. And actually, the biggest one, actually, believe it or not, is passports. And so we had a lot of passport issues over the summer. They're starting to die down a little bit, but it takes a long time to get a passport. It didn't used to, but it does now.
Yeah, which, the irony, you can walk on across with COVID,
without
with drugs, partying like a rock star.
Without a passport.
Without a passport. But then those of us who are legitimately trying to get one.
Yeah. But if you need to renew your passport, it used to be we could get it. You get it done in a couple business days. It's now several months.
Plan in advance.
So if you're planning to go overseas in December, you need to apply for your passport right now.
Absolutely.
Public service announcement from your congressman.
Absolutely. And
PSA.
who in your office does somebody call? We have several friends who are fairly high up in the medical world.
Yeah.
And they've told one of our friends that if she does not get vaccinated, even though she's not really around people anymore, because now she's the chief, right? That she will be fired if she does not get the vaccination. So
there is no federal legal protection for that at this point, and it's very upsetting. I mean, I think that while I've been vaccinated, I encourage other people to be vaccinated. I think it ultimately is a personal choice, and there's some people that for medical reasons don't think they should be.
Exactly.
Hey, I don't think that's the right thing for me. And so, but there is, and I've signed on to legislation in Congress, banning vaccine passports. I mean, I don't think it's right that people should to access the federal government, they should have to be vaccinated. So unfortunately, but she's welcome to call our office. We'll see what we can do. But there is, as far as I know, there's no federal law to protect people from that. So.
All right.
Just heartbreaking.
Well, Congressman Taylor, thanks again.
Sure.
And,
we appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming in. Always great to see you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And good conversation. Look forward to next week. That should be interesting as well.
Oh, yeah.
As things continue to unfold and we see what's going to happen.
Things are unfolding.
Yeah,
Yes.
They are.
Next
indeed.
week should be very interesting.
All right.
Well,
And then
thank
stay
you.
tuned
We
on
look
Friday
forward to
with
seeing you
State Fair of
then.
Texas Talk. Big question now is, will the State Fair of Texas get to happen or not? The Plano Balloon Festival has been
Anita
canceled.
Fletcher's corny dog. Yeah, I
And
was
so
heartbroken.
stay tuned.
Second year in a row.
Let's have that conversation.
Plano Balloon Festival to be canceled. So
Will the State Fair of Texas survive the variant? And then, of course, all the other fun conversation we have on Fridays. Have a blessed Wednesday. Be safe. It's raining out there. Don't forget, you can still drive on rain. Just drive normal. Drive normal. Have a blessed day. Be safe.
Thank you. Tough show, but